I'll go ahead. Okay. I'll go ahead and call this hearing back to order. Like to proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Again, my name is Bill Moore. I represent Valley Speedway in this revocation hearing this evening. I'm going to have a few brief opening remarks, but I think it's important to point out that this is more than just technical issues that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the livelihood of an individual. And when you're dealing with the livelihood of an individual, it shouldn't be taken lightly or for granted. Now, you've heard testimony that there's been issues and disputes. But I think what we're going to be able to present to you tonight is evidence that shows that, in fact, Mr. Shrout has been in compliance with the conditions of the special use or the conditional use permit. We'll do that through testimony from Mr. Shrout himself. We'll also provide testimony from Jerry Lichtai, who is an owner of Management Strategies Group, who provided and presented the sound study that we've discussed already, that was performed in 2014, that my client commissioned and submitted to the city. It will demonstrate through his testimony that his conclusions are that my client is not in violation of the decibel levels that are set forth in your conditional use permit. Now, you're going to hear, I'm sure, discussion about whether or not the methodology that was selected is a good methodology or an appropriate methodology. But I would submit to you that during the course of our presentation, you'll discover that, again, as we've already heard, there is no stated methodology for determining whether or not a particular event has exceeded or not exceeded the 65 decibel level. I will submit to you that when we're dealing with issues of this nature, this revocation proceeding, that it is incumbent on the city. In fact, the city has a very heavy burden to follow to revoke a conditional use permit. It must be by clear and convincing evidence. And I believe we'll be able to show through testimony that we have compliance and that there is no clear and convincing evidence. Zoning ordinances such as this are in derogation of the common law. And as a result, whenever they're ambiguous, they have to be strictly construed in the favor of the property owner. And again, let's go back to the 65 decibel level that seems to be the primary focus here of this hearing tonight, and how you measure 65 decibels. I would submit to you that we'll be able to demonstrate that we have a reasonable methodology that was followed with the conclusion that it does not exceed 65 decibel level, and therefore, I think we'll be able to demonstrate to you, and hopefully you will accept the fact that because of the stringent requirement imposed on a city in going through these procedures, that you will find in our client's favor. We've heard testimony that this isn't about Mr. Shrout. Well, of course it's about Mr. Shrout. It's his livelihood. It's his business. And your action tonight, if you determine to revoke this permit, is denying my client the right to continue operation. And I would submit to you that under Missouri law, property owners operating under conditional use permits have vested rights to continue the operation unless it is shown by clear and convincing evidence that it's been in violation. What we're dealing with tonight is a discretionary action on your part. You're not required to do this. It's discretionary. You've chosen to go down this path. You don't have to revoke. And again, I would submit that we'll submit evidence to you that will demonstrate my client is in compliance and that there is no basis for denial or revocation of the conditional use permit. With that, I'd like to call Mr. Shrout as my first witness. Mr. Shrout, would you tell us what your business occupation is?
I'm a motorsport facility in Grain Valley, Missouri.
And how long have you owned the Valley Speedway?
I purchased it in 2008.
When you purchased it, was there a conditional use permit in place at the time?
Yes, there was.
When you purchased it, were you ever advised that the prior owner had been in violation?
No, as a matter of fact, I had a couple of meetings with the city before I purchased it to see what issues there might be, and the only issues I was told about was there was a water meter out there that was shared by the football field and myself, and I was told that I would have to purchase a $2,000 water meter. But all this other stuff, about the traffic plan and stuff, I am assuming that the prior owner had already filed that stuff. You know, it doesn't say that I have to file it every year. I mean, it is what it is. It hasn't changed. The traffic study hasn't changed. So if it was an issue, I would have thought they would have notified me at the time.
Mr. Shrout, I've put up on the board the what's marked as the city's, or our exhibit number 1, or 15, I'm sorry. And it's an aerial of the racetrack generally. And is it correct that this is the area of the racetrack?
That would be correct.
All right. When we're talking about the conditional use permit, does the conditional use permit only cover this racetrack?
No, it covers the entire facility.
And by entire facility, are you referring then to what's shown here and labeled as the drag strip?
Correct.
And is that the sand drag?
Correct.
Okay. And does it cover this area?
Yes, the football fields. It also covers a motocross track that isn't
motocross is back over here?
Correct, that's where the motocross. Actually, there's 4 facilities there that it covers, 4 separate facilities.
This conditional use permit is covering all of those areas, but yet you're the owner and operator of just the racetrack and what, motocross?
Motocross track, yes, sir.
You're not the owner and operator of the drag strip?
No.
Or of the, obviously, the city-owned property? This is a copy of the ordinance for the conditional use permit, and it is marked as our Exhibit 16. I think it's just worth pointing out, this was an ordinance that was adopted in 2003 before you acquired the property, correct?
Correct.
And is this ordinance states that there was a public hearing held at the time that the conditional use permit was approved?
Yes, it does.
And were there public hearings held?
Yes, there were.
and public testimony was permitted?
Yes, and I think it passed unanimously at the time.
Okay, thank you. This is a copy of, and I apologize because I believe some of this is a duplication of what Mr. Cook has already presented, but this is a copy of the page out of the city's zoning ordinance dealing with conditional use permits. You know, I'd like to just draw your attention to the highlighted area there, Mr. Shrout. I'll just read that. It says, sound amplification system or any other noise caused by the operation shall not exceed 65 decibels as measured at the property line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does it say in there how that's to be measured?
No, it does not.
Does it say anywhere else within that page how decibel levels are to be measured?
No, if you take it just at its face value of 65 decibels, if I was standing at my property line talking, I would be not in compliance by talking.
Okay. Let's move on to what we've labeled as exhibit number 18. And this is just actually a portion of the Green Valley zoning map. And again, if I could just point out, if I push the right button, I could. This area right here, is that your property, generally?
Yeah, right there, kind of to the right. It goes all the way up to Buckner Tarsney on the left, so there's some businesses on a Hare Street, I think, right there that travels to the left that have the same zoning as I do, M1, I think.
And what is that zoning?
M1.
In looking at the zoning map, Mr. Shrout, can you tell me if this is your property? Is there any property adjoining or adjacent to your property that is zoned anything other than M1?
No, there's not.
Okay, thank you. Now I just want to walk through some slides, some photos that have been taken of your property. And again, Mr. Shrout, if you would mind just take a few moments and kind of explain perhaps where we're at. These are all photographs of your property, of the racetrack.
Yes, they are. That would be the front straightaway where the cars, what you consider the front straight, where the flagman stand is at.
Okay. And how about this photo?
Same, it's just from a different angle on the front straight.
We've got a series of photos of the racetrack. Anything you'd like to point out on this one?
Oh, just the safety issues of the, you got the catch fence, the cables in it. That's just to where if you have debris or a car, it keeps them out. Then the fence closest where the T-iron posts are is to keep the fans from getting too close to the other fence and, getting hit by any debris or anything. So it's more of a fan fence, the closest one to us, and the other one is more of a safety fence for the cars.
Okay, thank you. How about this photo, Mr. Shrout?
That's the grandstands on the front straightaway.
Okay, and again?
Same from a different angle.
And this photo?
That is the end of the front straight, what they would consider turn one, at the end of the front straight on turn one. And now we're getting photos of the, I guess, off the track, and what are we looking at here? Yeah, that's kind of a concourse area. Whenever people buy food and stuff, we have some picnic tables and stuff to set in. You can kind of see a concession area to the right and offices, and the building on the left is our concession stand, and you can just barely see on the far left is our souvenir stand where people can buy T-shirts and such.
So you're talking about the people that attend your events?
Correct, the fans.
Fans, how many fans show up at an event?
Anywhere from, if you're considering fans and drivers, anywhere from 600 to, say, 1,500. Depends on the event that we would be doing at the time. The bigger events, of course, are gonna draw more people, the touring events and monster truck shows like that. The special events draw a bigger crowd.
I see you got picnic tables and other things that are, what's the age group?
It's a family situation. We do a lot of things where kids can actually color a picture of their favorite race car driver, and usually whatever they color these pictures, we'll have anywhere from 50 to 100 kids color the picture and come to the races, and then when the event's over, they can walk down to the pits and get their favorite driver to sign the picture. And we do it for the monster truck show too. We'll do some monster truck coloring pictures, and they get a free toy monster truck when they bring their picture in to show it to them.
Okay.
That's our concession stand with the windows right there closed. The whites, the windows that we open up during the event to sell product out of.
All right.
Now let me show this picture. What specifically are we looking at here? Where is it?
That's on the door to the concession stand. We have those posted throughout the facility. Really, if it rains out there, it takes several hours to come up, but part of our conditional use permit is that they're supposed to be posted to where if the water would come up, people know that if you get a heavy rain, there's a possibility of flooding out there, and it has flooded in the past. But it takes several hours to come up to where it would be an issue, a safety issue.
Do you run races when it rains?
No, when it rains, we can't race.
So it would be safe to say that when it's raining,
yeah,
we're not have people at the racetrack?
We're not there when it's raining.
Okay.
All right, well,
It's good to know that it could flood there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if somebody would be there, I guess.
Again,
that's our ticket stand where people come in. We try to put them in areas to where they're going to be visible, to where everybody that comes in has to buy a ticket, so they're going to have to see that sign as they come in.
okay.
And we also have no guns allowed, so we try to be with signage as pertinent as we can to where we don't have any problems out there.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to this area. What are we looking at here?
That's our parking lot, where you see that white van. The cars pull in from either direction. The concreted area is our fire lane. It's approximately, probably close to 30 feet wide. The concrete area, cars are not allowed to park there. They park on the, where you see the millings, where that white van is. That's where the parking takes place.
And this area right here you're describing? Correct?
Yeah, that's the fire lane, correct.
Fire lane. And this area over here is where the cars park?
Yes, that's the parking area.
And if I remember correctly, you have several areas that are identical to this?
Yes, I think there's probably 5 lanes that, fire lanes where they drive down it, and then the parking in between each one.
Have you ever been advised by Central Jack Fire Protection District that there's an issue that they have with accessibility?
No.
So what are we looking at here?
That's the gate where you come into the complex. That's where everybody drives through that gate that comes in, whether it be a fan or a race car driver. That's where they enter the facility.
And this gate is immediately to the front, our side of it, is coming off of 40 Highway?
Correct.
What are we looking at over here?
That's a fire lane sign that says no parking, fire lane, where they come in at, where nobody parks out there. They have to park in the parking area.
Again, this is on your property?
Correct.
And
those would be fire lane signs and plus a flood sign, one of the flood signs that's just alerting people that if they didn't see the other ones.
And this property is located, the track is just
it would be
off to the left of that trailer, is that correct?
Correct, and right straight ahead would be the sand drag area. If you just went right straight, that kind of you can see that little building kind of in the background. That's his scoring
This one?
tower. Yeah, correct. That's the scoring tower for the sand drag area.
And this is parking that's utilized by your fans also?
Correct, yeah, that is my parking. His parking would be, past where those signs are in, his facility. We share a common entrance, coming into both facilities, but his racetrack and parking area is separate from mine.
Okay, very good, thank you.
That's where you go into the pits at the racetrack. All the drivers that go to the pit area have to go through that area. So again, we try to locate the signs to where they'll for sure see them as they go in. You can't really go anywhere that you're not going to see the sign.
And again, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, we're going through these photos. They are identified as exhibits in our packet, and I've not identified them specifically as exhibits as we're going through here. I just want to jump forward here just for a minute and finish up on photos. Mr. Strout, what are we looking at here?
That's the football complex just south of where the sand drag area is, and that's 40 Highway, Old 40 Highway, that road you see right there.
That's not your entrance, is it?
No, that's the entrance to the football fields, football soccer fields. I think it's kind of a multi-use type complex.
And this property is owned by the city?
I'm assuming it is, yes.
Okay. It's used for the athletic fields?
Yes.
What are we seeing here?
They've got no alcohol signs posted throughout the facility. I'm assuming there's no alcohol allowed on city park property, I'm assuming.
And again, I guess that's something similar, correct?
Yeah, and I think there's some saying that they can't trespass whenever they're not open. Something to that. There might be, there's some that's a little closer.
And here's some more signs on the park property.
Yeah.
Have you seen any signs advising the public of flood hazard areas?
No, there's none posted at all over there. There's no fire lane signs either.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Mr. Strout, let's talk a little bit about the races itself, the racing events. How often do you run races?
Every Saturday, and then I think we have 5 special events this year. I think 2 Wednesdays, 1 Thursday, and 2 Fridays, I think is what it is.
What's the special event?
Oh, it's a touring group that comes in. Whenever you do a touring event, a lot of times, if you want to do those events, they give you a date that is available, and either you take it or you don't have one. So those events a lot of times are during the week because it's tough to get a date on some of those big events, and they come from out of town. I mean, they come from all over the country when they come to those special events.
Do you have good attendance at those?
Yes, we do.
Generally, what months are you running your races?
Racing starts in April, and usually we wrap it up by the end of September. We've went into October a few times. It depends on the weather, but usually we're wrapped up by the end of September.
And on your races, generally the races are run on what days?
Saturday evening.
Saturday evening?
Yeah, the pits open at 4, and we try to be finished up. We have a curfew, a self-imposed curfew of 11 o'clock, and 11 o'clock we're done. Checkered flag comes out, whether we're finished racing or not. We try to be done by 10. I think this year we went past 10 o'clock maybe 3 times, and most of the time we're done by 9:30.
What kind of races do you hold? What kind of cars are we talking about here?
The classes, we have modified racing, modified race cars, with what we call outlaw streets. It's kind of a bodied car, race car with a body on it that looks like your everyday driver, kind of, you know. And then we have a dirt demon class that is a front-wheel drive, 4-cylinder car. And then we have what we call mod lights, and it's a little car with a motorcycle engine in it. And that's our weekly racing. Our special events, we do A-mods and a couple other classes, and sprint cars. I think 3 times this year we had sprint cars out there.
I think you indicated at one time that with respect to the races, that there's a kind of an order now that you use for when these particular cars run.
Last year we started picking one of our quieter classes to run last, no matter what time we get done, just to, again, to keep the sound down. Some people go to bed earlier, so we tried to come up with a quieter group of cars. We always run the quietest cars at the very last race, so if we do get close to the 11 o'clock curfew, it's a quieter sound rather than having the louder cars out there. But again, even with the quieter cars at 11 o'clock, we're done.
When did you start doing that?
The 11 o'clock?
Running the quieter cars.
Probably 2 years ago. We started running the quiet cars last, and the curfew's always been in place. I mean, it's ever since I've had it.
It's maybe 2 years ago. I think Cook-Flat-Strobel study was done in 2010.
Correct.
So it was sometime after Cook.
Yeah, it was after the study, correct.
Okay. And was that done as a result of the recommendations that were made in the study?
They didn't specifically recommend that. We just did it as an attempt to try to be a good neighbor. I mean, they can say what they want to about us, but we've tried to be in a situation to do what we can do, to be as quiet as we can.
How many people show up at your races?
Anywhere from, say, again, if you count the pits, the people that are in the pits, that go to the pits and their pit crew, I'd say 500 to 600 on the low end, and then on the high end, 1,500.
People that are coming from Grain Valley?
Around the area. I mean, we get a lot of Grain Valley residents. We have a pretty good following on our Facebook page from Grain Valley. You can kind of tell where they're from on Facebook, so we have a good following from people in Grain Valley.
But you've got fans outside of the community?
Yeah, if you go out of town and you go to just about anywhere you want, if you mention Grain Valley, it's known to be as a racetrack town. I'll guarantee you, if you say Grain Valley out of town, oh yeah, there's a racetrack there. We come down there. I got friends that go there, so.
And would you think that's a good thing?
I would think so. I mean, for me and the city and the businesses in this city, they spend money when they come to town. If you talk to them, most of these people spend $200 or $300 per person away from the racetrack, getting gas and eating and things like that.
So it'd be safe to say you're a pretty good economic generator for the city of Grain Valley.
I think so. Correct.
Speaking of economic development, how many people do you employ?
Probably around 15 to 20. We've got our concession staff's around 10, and there's probably another 10 to 15. So
before you go any further, I have been very patient, but I'm going to interpose an objection. This is not relevant to this proceeding. It doesn't make any difference how many people he employs, how much money is brought in. It's not about economic impact. It's about compliance. That's what we recognize.
Okay. So, I've been advised that I'm supposed to go ahead and hear the evidence, correct? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I think at this point I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Not because Mr. Cook interjected an objection. I'd like to talk about the conditional use permit. You received the notice from the city, is that correct?
just this last one about the revocation hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that the only letter you've received notifying you that you're in violation?
Yes.
You've talked to the city from time to time. I mean, we've seen the record.
I've got good friends at the city. I mean, I got personal friends at the city.
But you've talked to the city, the board.
Yes.
You know, at public meetings about the racing and about the noise from time to time. Is that correct?
Correct.
I think you heard Mr. Ryan stated that that the city has requested that you 5 times, that you provide a sound study.
I would
Do you agree
disagree
with
with that adamantly. No, I don't know. They may have brought up the one sound study 5 times. The only one that I ever told them that I was going to do was by Joe Panza of Hollywood Sound, and he did the sound study, and I never ever got the results. And every time they had a meeting, they asked about it. So they may have asked about it 5 times, but it was only one sound study.
All right, I want to ask you, you've heard all the testimony regarding the fact of the requirements under the special or the conditional use permit. Do you believe you're in compliance?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Why do you believe we're in compliance?
The sound study we just did using a methodology that's used by the federal government, it passes under that. The signage that we have at the track, we've got our signs that talking about the flooding issues. We've got the no parking signs for the fire lanes. I'm not sure, we may need to add more signs. I mean, if we need to add more signs, I don't have a problem with it, but I haven't been advised or instructed by anybody of what that would be, how many signs there has to be. Basically, I've got more signs on mine than the city does on theirs.
Well, let me ask you a question about the signs. Have you ever been notified by the city in writing
No,
that you have inadequate signage on your property?
no,
You ever been notified in writing by the city that you're not in compliance as a result of the lack of signage?
no.
Again, we've kind of heard some testimony regarding the notice that's required to be filed with the chief of police and the chief at the Central Jackson County Fire Protection District. And again, it states that there's a notice that has to be filed with 7 days in advance of an event where there's an expectation of more than 100 individuals at the event. Do you provide a schedule to the police department?
Yes, I get with Aaron because, again, his officers come out and help us out at the track, and we give him our schedule. I mean, it says it has to be up to 7 days or whatever it is. I give it a year ahead of time. So, I mean, he was not specifically given a schedule about last Thursday's race, but it's been on the schedule all year. So, I mean, the way I read it, unless I'm interpreting it wrong, we don't have to tell them every 7 days we're going to have a race. If I give them a schedule and I expect 100 people there to be at every event I have for all year, I'm assuming that's sufficient. If it's not, I guess I need to have that clarified.
You've never been notified in
No.
writing that you're not in compliance?
No.
Has anybody from either the city or Central Jack ever notified you that you're not in compliance?
No, I have not.
With respect to Central Jack, you attempted to deliver a plan to Central Jack, was it last week?
Yes.
What were the results of that?
Well, just, again, I would like to bring, we gave the thing to Aaron, because we had talked to him. I don't know what the letter said, so evidently there's something Aaron saw in it that he was concerned about. But, he's been very good to work with. And, whenever I went out to the fire department, again, we have tried to file these things to get in compliance. I'm not sure why they refused to take them, but they told me that they had nothing to do with the conditional use permit, had nothing to do with anything involved with the special use permit, and I asked them if I could at least just leave it with them to look at, and they told me no, that I couldn't leave it. And I don't think they were trying to be hateful or anything. I don't think they know what the CUP consists of, but they specifically told me, they read the thing, and I had the traffic study in there also. I had a schedule in there, because I don't think the fire department's ever got a schedule. I gave it to Aaron, but I don't know that Aaron shares it with them. I don't know that he's required to. So there was a schedule in there, and the traffic plan, and they said that I couldn't leave it, and they didn't have anything to do with the conditional use permit in Grain Valley, and I couldn't leave it. They wouldn't take it.
Okay, let's talk about the written traffic control plan. That's supposed to be approved by the chief of police. Again, have you had conversations with the police chief regarding traffic?
The only thing, and I don't know this with Chief Ambrose or not, we do a ruckus event out there. We do a couple events a year where the police come out. Actually, it's the VIP, the VIPs, the Volunteers and Police, I think is what it stands for. And they come out and park cars and kind of do the traffic thing on those events because there's a lot of traffic. So they have come out and helped park cars at a couple of 3 events. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. I think Chief Ambrose thought it was during a racing event, and I don't think they've ever done it at racing events. It's been at some of these special events we've done, is where the VIPs have come out and helped park cars and helped with the parking. And I guess from my standpoint, whenever I took the track over, I assumed that all this stuff was already on file, you know, from the previous owner. It doesn't state that it has to be done every year, so some of that stuff, I guess, was my assumption that it was already filed and on file with whoever it's supposed to be on file with, because they never mentioned to me that I needed to do another one.
You ever been notified in writing that you didn't file a written traffic control plan?
No, and I did.
Other than the notice of violation?
Yes, correct.
Or revocation.
And I've talked to Aaron about it and kind of asked him to get some guidance from him, you know, and that's whenever we kind of sent the thing to him. I said, well, we're supposed to do this to get in compliance, and I told him we'd write something up and give it to him, you know, and he said, well, I'm aware of what it is, so that's fine. And again, I'm not sure it was in the letter, but evidently it was something he didn't like.
But again, you believe that you have been working with the police department continuously to deal with the flow of traffic to your events.
Correct. I mean, more than the flow of traffic, the safety issue with our fans. I just think it's a good presence to have the police department out there to where if there's a problem, there's somebody on site that has authority. So, and they've been very well, they've been good to work with. They've been very, very well, you know, they've taken care of things like we needed. So I don't have any problems with them at all.
And by that, you're referring then to the off-duty police
Correct.
officers?
Yes.
And that's, I think the chief indicated that you pay those officers
Yes,
directly?
we pay them.
Correct?
Yes, it's an off-duty thing. Yeah, we deal directly with the policemen.
Okay. And in the event of anything that might occur out there, you have a rowdy fan, does that off-duty police officer have the ability to remove them from your premises?
Yes, we've removed several. If something happens, the police I don't think we ever arrested anybody, but we've escorted them to the gate and requested that they leave the premises. So, and if they didn't, they would be arrested. So yeah, they've escorted people off the property before.
Okay, let's just quickly talk about the sound study. I think you already indicated, and I want to restate the question. You have provided a sound study to the city, is that correct?
Yes. There's a sound study that was done early, and I didn't have the track at the time, and it's in the minutes of the meeting, but nobody seems to be able to find that sound study. And that sound study, the way I was told, mirrors the second sound study. He talks about me mirroring another sound study like I'm lying about something. What I was referring to was the first sound study that the city actually had done. I'm not sure who did that sound study, but nobody seems to be able to locate it. And from what I was told, that the second sound study pretty much mirrored the first sound study as far as the decibel readings and where they were taken at. So, you know, I wasn't trying to lie to anybody about, you know, I'd done a sound study and it mirrored the second one. It was not my sound study. It was their sound study that nobody seems to be able to locate.
With respect to the sound study that was just recently completed, you commissioned that sound study, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And who was the vendor?
Jerry Lichtide.
He's with whom?
Oh, man. I don't... I'm sorry. My glasses on. Management Strategies, performed by Management Strategies, the name of the company.
What dates were those, was the study conducted on?
May 16th and May 17th.
With respect to the completion of that study, when did you receive the results of that study from?
I think it was on about the 10th of would be the following month, so it would be June, the 10th of June probably. Jerry has other clients, and so what we did was fairly extensive, and he had to do a lot of research, so it was a couple of 3 weeks before he got it to me in the completed form to turn in to you.
And on June 10th was the date you provided that to me, is that correct?
That's the way I remember it, correct.
And are you aware of the fact that I provided it then to the city through their legal counsel?
Yeah, I think I got
day?
the email that you copied me on after you sent it, correct.
I want to go back to some of the actions that you've taken to remediate the effects of noise. Again, we've heard testimony about the Cook-Flatt-Strobel study and their recommendations to do certain measures to reduce sound. What have you done?
We've put up barriers. Whenever they did that study, they gave us some options to try to help reduce the noise in the areas that actually they were the greatest. So we put up some signage that's 30 feet in the air. We put up some trailers out there. Pretty much the entire facility is surrounded by trailers, the entire complex. On our bleachers, we put boards behind where people's feet are. There's an open area there, so we put boards between that open area to try to keep the sound from going through there. And then again, we run our quietest group of cars last. And we've got mufflers. I mean, I call these muffler companies and tell them the situation. I mean, this isn't unique to Green Valley. I mean, sound issues are, everywhere. So they have sent us mufflers, and we mandate mufflers. If you come to the racetrack and you don't have a muffler, you will not race. You can ask anybody to come out there without mufflers. Either they buy mufflers or go home.
And these new mufflers that you're talking about, these were required by you as a result of the recommendations of the Cook-Flatt-Strobel study?
Yes, we had a muffler before, but it wasn't adequate, so we started searching. We didn't get the sound reduction. It was only about 2 to 3 decibels. The one that Mark Evinger, that's the one he'd come up with before I bought it. And we did some checking, and we found a couple of mufflers that gave us almost a 10 decibel reduction. So that's the one that we mandated in our rules that they have.
And those are the ones you're talking about that you require each driver to use?
Correct. And I have a guy out there, if they don't have them, that he'll sell them to them.
And how do you ensure that? Do you inspect each car for every race? Yes.
We inspect them before they go out on the track, and whenever they come off the track, we inspect the top 5 in each class. So if they fall off, they're disqualified. If they lose their muffler during the race, they don't get paid and they don't get points.
I think previously you indicated that you limit the hours of operation.
Correct.
What are the hours again?
The pits open at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just for the drivers and teams to come in. Fan gates open about 5. We get started with what they call hot laps at 6:30. And our goal is to be done by 9:30, and we've hit that pretty regular this year between 9:30 and 10. And like I said before, at 11 o'clock we're done. We do not run past 11.
So between 4 and 11 is...
Correct.
When racing...
Would be activity at the facility.
Active, of some sort.
Correct.
And again, you stated you run your quieter cars at the later races?
Correct.
And you always do that?
Yes. Well, with the exception of a special. If we have a special out there, sometimes the little cars aren't there. So if there's a special, that may not happen, but you're talking about 4 or 5 events a year that would pertain to.
In that case, they just don't run at all?
The little cars?
Yeah.
No, they're not there.
Okay. Dennis, I think maybe just a final. You know, maybe a final question, is there anything that you'd like to add that you've not been able to bring out in your testimony
Well,
so far this evening?
They brought up the 65 decibels a couple of times, you know, saying that I couldn't meet it. I can't meet it the way they intended to be taken is the problem. You know, like I said, if we was at the racetrack right now, sitting in a chair talking at the property line, we'd be in violation the way they literally say it needs to be taken if it goes over 65, and it's impossible. It's absolute impossibility if that's the way they choose to see that ordinance mandated. It can't be done.
So you're saying that if the sound is analyzed and measured in a certain manner, you could comply?
Yes, using the government the way they do it, we can comply, yes.
Anything else?
No.
Further questions?
Okay. Mr. Cook?
I don't know why we're here, Mr. Trout. Everything I heard you say is it's our fault. City hasn't done this, city hasn't done that, city didn't give me a written notice. You're not sitting there telling this city, this board and mayor that you didn't know and haven't known for 5 years that you were violating the conditional use permit. You're not saying that, are you?
Yes, I'm saying that. Because we've had meeting after meeting with this city, and they never ever once told me or gave me a citation, and I sat down with you before I bought the racetrack and asked you if there were any issues, and I wasn't told of any outside of a water meter. Was the only thing I was told about.
I haven't heard you take 1 ounce of responsibility for continuing to violate this ordinance. All you're talking about is what the city didn't do. You didn't get written notice. Tell this board and mayor where it's required to give you written notice of anything.
If I drove my car through Green Valley at over the speed limit, could the state revoke my driver's license without a proper hearing and without a ticket? Have I ever had a ticket?
It'll give you a ticket for violating the speed limit, and I'll take you to court, because I don't have to give you notice and say, Mr. Trout, slow down.
But you can't revoke my license without giving me a ticket.
Do it enough times I can.
Okay, you're the attorney, not me.
No, I don't, I'll just bring it to court. I won't make that decision. That's what these people are gonna do. And I'll submit to you, sir, you sat there and said you never got notice. I saw 2 of the notices in April and June that you got from this board. And I read the minutes where you stated time after time that you would provide a sound study.
One time I did that. One time. If you've got something to the contrary, then give it to my attorney and let him read it. Because one time, and Joe Panza is the one that took it, and I never...
Tell this board when Joe Panza did that sound study.
Probably 2011. It was after the one that the city did.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes from this board. In January of 2011, Trout stated the city's sound study mirrored his own.
No, it mirrored the one that was taken early by the city that nobody seems to be able to come up with.
Well, sir, I don't know what study you're talking about, but we can agree.
If you read the minutes, it's in there. If you read the minutes, there was a sound study done, and Ryan Hunt said that it can't be located, so I don't know where it's at. And the story that I got was the second sound study that the city did mirrored that sound study, the first one.
Mr. Trout, I want to make a deal with you. You don't interrupt me, and I don't interrupt you.
Okay, that's fair.
Isn't that common courtesy?
I'm done, okay.
Now, let's get back to your notice and your commitment to provide this board with the sound study. You said it one time, are you telling the board that? You said it one time, I'm gonna provide a sound study?
Yes.
Well, I counted 5.
You may count the same one 5 times, but it was one time.
Well, you know, that's a good point. Every year, you're supposed to provide one. You knew that, didn't you?
It's in the conditional use permit.
And you knew what the terms and conditions of the conditional use permit are, don't you?
Not as they're interpreted by the city.
Sir, you can read, and it doesn't say, there's no interpretation about you must provide a sound study every year, correct?
Does the city have to have a sound study for the football field? Why is this all about me? The football field's under the same conditional use permit I am, so's the sand drag track. It seems to be all about me. Why is it just only about me? The conditional use permit covers 4 facilities out there, correct?
Fortunately, I'm asking the question.
All right.
I'm not answering.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify. I'm just trying to clarify.
Let me just tell you this, sir. We're not here to talk about the city or Joe Jones. We're talking about Valley Speedway, Dennis Shroud.
That we're talking about a conditional use permit. You said this wasn't about Dennis Shroud. It's about a conditional use permit.
I'm talking about Dennis Shroud, the operator who violated the city's code. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the city's football fields or signage. I'm talking about what you did or not did.
Are they under the same conditional use permit? Can I at least ask you that?
No, you can ask me, but I'm not
Okay.
gonna answer because I'm not talking about that.
We're talking about the conditional use permit, aren't we?
Mr. Shroud, it's what you have done as the holder of the permit. That's what we're talking about.
The permit covers 4 facilities. It's not just about me.
Apparently it isn't. That's what you would want this board to believe. It's
How
about,
could it be taken any other way? Does the conditional use permit cover all 4 facilities?
it covers your operation and what goes on in that area. Now, let's keep with the questions, Mr. Shroud.
Okay.
When you told this board, September 25th, 2012, Shroud agreed to have additional sound study performed by the end of season 2012 and return with results. Did you do that?
That's probably the one that Joe Panza took that I never received.
You said that he did that in 2011.
I thought it was 2011.
So it was 2011.
That would be my guess, correct.
Even, let's assume it was Pansy. The point is, you told the board you'd come back with the sound study, you didn't, correct?
Correct.
You told the board February of 11, you would contact the city to participate in the testing of new mufflers. Never contacted. Did you ever contact the city to talk to them about the testing of new mufflers?
We've talked to the city about mufflers numerous times. Did I specifically invite them out? No, probably not.
March 25th, 2013. Board requested a workshop to discuss the result of city sound study versus Shroud's independent sound study. Shroud was not prepared to discuss findings and requested an extension in mid-April. That was 2013. Did you ever provide a sound study in 2013?
No.
Mr. Shroud, you testified that you couldn't comply with the 65 decibel limit because if someone were standing at your property line talking at 65 decibels, they would violate the limit, correct? Yes. And on its face, if that occurred, that sound, that noise, whatever it is, whether it's from a race car, zoom, 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 or yelling, or crowd noise, that violates the ordinance, does it?
No. Not the way we see to take it.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I went through the minutes, Ryan Hunt went through the minutes and testified. I didn't see one time that you ever came before this board, at any time, in the last 5 years since you've been the owner, or 6 now, and complained to this board about decibel measurements, or I can't comply.
Yeah, I have.
Did you ever ask?
I told the board and you that decibel reading could not be met. And the reason I never said anything before then was because I'm not a sound study guy. Whenever Strobel did their sound study, I talked to their guy, and he told me that you needed to do the time-weighted average. The way he did it, it was not done properly. And that's whenever I got a hold of Mr. Lichtai and said, okay, how does this need to be taken? What's the criteria of how this needs to be done using the time-weighted average? And this is what we came up with using the government guidelines.
I would agree, this is what you came up with. And you came up with it to try to show that you've been in compliance. But my question to you is, you never came before this board, or the Plan Commission, or the Citizens Commission, and ever mentioned the fact that the measurement of 65 decibels was ever a problem, did you?
Yes, numerous times.
When did you once state that?
Every time I came up here, I said the 65 decibels is impossible to meet. There's no way it can be met.
Precisely. But did you ever say, and by the way, Mr. Mayor and board members, it's impossible to me because I didn't understand that 65 decibels really doesn't mean 65 decibels.
I don't think the board understood what it was when they passed it.
Well, sir, I would imagine, I kind of thought you might say something like that. Is it the board's fault and the mayor's fault that when you opened that racetrack under your operation and management, that you didn't follow what was required?
I had a meeting with the city, and they didn't mention any of these issues. I would have thought that whenever we had those meetings, that if there was problems, they would have been brought up.
All right, Mr. Trout. You provided a lot of pictures today. I noticed they're all taken June 27th, June 30th. Correct? I didn't see any that weren't.
Well, I didn't have any reason to take any prior to then.
Well, that's where I'm going with this.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
these signs we say, they look brand new to me. When did you put those signs up?
We added signs probably 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. Well, where are the pictures that you have showing that you were in compliance with the signage in 10, 11, 12, 13?
Where's your pictures that I'm not?
You're the one that was in compliance.
They were up. That one picture where you're coming in the track, one of the first ones, it showed one of the original signs. It was there whenever I bought the track. There was a sign up that said flooding during high water. That sign did fall down, so, yes.
Are you telling this board, Mr. Trout, that you didn't think you had to comply with this use permit because the prior owner had done it, so you didn't think you needed to do it?
No, I thought that we probably was in compliance because we were doing what the city was doing on their property. That if it was that important, that probably there would be signs, we had signs up, maybe not to the extent of where they all needed to be, and I still don't have a clarification on how many there needed to be up.
Mr. Trout, apparently you and I are going to agree on too much tonight, or I would agree with that.
We agree on that.
But I think we can agree on one thing, that you have never told Central Jack what you were required to tell the fire department under the conditional use permit.
I went out there to try to get in compliance after all this came about, and they told me they knew nothing about a conditional use permit and their involvement in it. I went out there to see where these signs needed to be, to give him the traffic thing the same one we gave Aaron. You're kind of crucifying me, telling me on one hand that we haven't done nothing, and whenever we do try it, I'm not quite sure what your point is, but yeah, that was the first time I've been out there. But Eddie's been at every one of these meetings. He knew what the schedule was, but did I formally give it to him? No. We've had meeting after meeting, and we gave him what our schedule was, and granted, it wasn't done, I guess, in the formal criteria that it's supposed to be done, but everybody knows when we race.
Well, I don't know about that, but you just said that you weren't compliant, you tried to get in compliance. When did you go out, last week and give Central Jack whatever you tried to give him?
They wouldn't take it.
When did you do it?
It's probably last Friday.
That after you tried to give it to Chief Ambrose? Yeah. Okay. So we can agree that last week was the first time you tried to give the fire department notice as required, correct?
In a way that I guess it reads that we have to specifically give it to them.
Well, that's really
You know,
What
that,
the conditional use permit is all about is that you have specific conditions to meet, correct?
yes, and if the traffic plan out there was in the first conditional use permit of the other owner, and I'm assuming that they had that on file, but evidently they don't, but I'm not quite sure why it's an issue now and it wasn't then.
So, you will agree and admit that you weren't in compliance, and you went out last week to get in compliance.
I assumed that we were in compliance with the traffic control.
Why would you assume this, sir?
I asked Aaron about it. Aaron said, I said, Aaron, is there any problem here? And again, Aaron said that his people are out there, everything looked fine to him, but no, we did not give him a written proposal.
Well, and I don't mean...
And I assumed it was already on file, so I don't, evidently that
What
was,
was already on file?
that proposal for the traffic study or whatever, the traffic parking, I'm not sure exactly how it reads.
What was on file, let's leave Aaron out of it just for a minute, what was on file with the fire department?
I don't know, ask him.
Well, what did you provide, sir?
They didn't take it, there's nothing on file with them. They would not take it,
Last week, what did you provide the fire department?
nothing.
So you weren't in compliance until you tried last week, correct?
He has been to all the meetings and had our schedule. Every time we have a meeting, we give schedules out of, here's when we're racing. Whenever we did this citizens advisory thing, we gave him a sheet of when we were gonna race. You know, whenever this whole thing started, we were have to have a citizens advisory meeting. We were supposed to go to the BZA. None of this has happened like it was supposed
I didn't
to.
ask you that question.
Okay.
And I think listening to your testimony, it's clear that you never, ever delivered anything to Central Jack to be in compliance with the ordinance until you tried last week.
And they wouldn't take it.
I understand.
So how do I know 2 years ago they would have took it? 3 years ago, how do I know? Like they told me they had nothing to do with the CUP with Green Valley. They knew nothing about their involvement in it, and I had no reason to take it or even leave it. They wouldn't let me leave it. So if I would have went out there 3 years, I'm assuming I wouldn't have got the same message. They don't know anything about them supposed to be in having anything involved with the CUP. And I told them I was sent out there by you.
You were sent there by me.
To get in compliance with what you had given us on the CUP.
I sent you out there, your lawyer sent you out there with that letter, so you signed something to try to show that you had been in compliance.
And that's what we tried to do.
Did you tell the fire department I sent you out there?
I told them that we were out there because we weren't in compliance as your instructions, that this is what this is all about, that you said we're not in compliance, so I was trying to get in compliance.
I'm not the one that said you weren't in compliance. These people said you weren't in compliance. These people said you weren't in compliance, and gave you notice of that in April, gave you notice of that in June, and you just told these people that you knew you weren't in compliance, so finally last week, you tried to get in compliance. That's what you just told them?
No, I did, it wasn't.
Pardon me? No. Would you tell the mayor and board approximately how many meetings, public, zoning, committee, workshop, you've attended personally to work with this board and this mayor to try to resolve your noncompliance? How many?
No idea how many there's been.
More than 15?
No,
More than 20?
no.
Less than 10?
I would guess less than 10.
And how many times have you stood before this body and told this body, I can't comply with the decibel limit of 65 decibels?
Probably 3 or 4. Whenever I finally figured out that I couldn't do it, after I went to all this trouble and trying to come up with it and talking to different people that knew something about sound ordinances and said it's impossible to get there, the way they're
You finally figured that out, you mean when your engineer finally came up with...
No, when your engineer, I figured it out whenever your engineer did the study, Strobel,
2010?
yes.
You knew something was amiss in 2010, according to you, and you didn't ever come to this board and say, hey, look at this study, something's wrong with this. Why didn't you do that?
I think I did, but evidently you don't agree, so.
Not me that's agreeing, Mr. Hunt did the review of the minutes. And I'll submit to you, there's not one thread, not one comment from Dennis Strout about methodology, impossibility, something's wrong with the Cook-Strobel study, until tonight.
I would disagree with that.
I would assume you would. Nothing further.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Stroud, again, I want to ask you, have you ever received any written notification
No,
from the city that you are not in compliance?
no,
You've had discussions, you've talked about a variety of issues with the city from time to time, going back to 2008, is that correct?
correct.
And they've talked about noise, they've talked about concerns expressed by citizens, some citizens, regarding sound levels, correct?
Correct.
But has the city ever said, in writing to you, you're in violation?
No, as a matter of fact, the city requested that we get together and try to come up with some compromises. We submitted a compromise to the city that we had put together to try to come up with something that would, I guess, bypass this whole issue here, and they never even responded to it. They didn't even respond to what we sent them.
Nothing further.
Mr. Cook?
Sometimes, Mr. Stroud, I have to take a step back and take a deep breath, because I just couldn't quite believe what I just heard. Thank you. But please tell the board, when you claim you did what you just said you did and the city didn't even respond, when did that amount to the city?
We sent it to you.
What?
You want to give him a copy of it?
No, I'm asking you, he's not.
I don't have it in my hand.
Well, I
He's
just
got
wanna
it in the
know-
file.
I want you to tell the board what you just said.
How many meetings did we have trying to come up with a compromise to get the track quieter and get it to where it was, they said it was a compromise where nobody would be happy, but it would be something that everybody could live with.
Mr. Stroud, listen to me.
Okay.
Try. What is the date you're claiming the city failed to even respond? That's what you just said.
It was approximately 2 weeks before they passed the revocation hearing. So whenever that date was, it was approximately 2 weeks prior to that. It was before they voted to have this revocation hearing. It was
And
before
you're
that.
claiming that the board did what, sir?
We sent a letter. It didn't go to the board. It went to you, I'm assuming. It went to you saying what we wanted to do, and we never got a response.
Okay, Mr. Trout, now, I think I know what letter you're talking about, and I will submit to you that if you sent a letter, your lawyer will confirm this, if you sent a letter, your lawyer sent a letter to me, you can darn well bet I responded to it.
Okay.
Are you referring by chance to the letter from your lawyer, what he refers to on February 24th, 2014? We sent a letter to you concerning the Valley Speedway?
I don't know. I don't know what you're
I'm
reading.
going to mark this as City's 12. And ask you if this is the letter, start right there, that you're claiming the city ignored.
No, this doesn't look like what I saw.
Well, why don't you, can we take a break, Your Honor? I want to get this,
Yeah, I think 5-minute recess.